CEO followed the single-dad mechanic after hours. What he does at 2 a.m. shocks her. The rain fell in heavy sheets over the quiet streets of Portland, Oregon. Midnight had long passed, and the neon glow of downtown had dimmed into a hush. Marissa Cole, CEO of Everline Capital, sat in her black sedan with the engine off, her eyes fixed on a modest auto garage with peeling red paint and a flickering sign that read, "Aaron's Auto, honest work, fair price." She hadn't meant to follow him, not at first. It started earlier that week during a routine board meeting. One of her company vehicles needed urgent repairs, and the board had recommended a high-end downtown shop. But Marissa, ever curious and skeptical of corporate convenience, had driven past and noticed Aaron's garage, tucked between a laundromat and a shuttered bakery. On a whim, she'd pulled in. Aaron wasn't what she expected. Mid-30s, grease-streaked tans, warm eyes that never quite looked up when he spoke. He fixed her car in half the time quoted elsewhere and charged half the price. But what struck her most was the way he'd paused when her assistant mentioned the company name. "Everline? My daughter watches your charity live streams," he'd said quietly before turning back to the engine. That small moment stayed with her. So when she saw him leave work late again, long after closing time, she followed. Not out of suspicion, but something deeper, a quiet pull she couldn't name. Now at 2 a.m., her windshield wipers thumped like a heartbeat as she watched Aaron pull into a rundown apartment complex on the edge of town. He stepped out, rain soaking through his worn jacket, and walked toward a covered courtyard. Marissa crept closer, heart pounding. There, huddled under a thin tarp, were 3 children, no older than 10, barefoot, shivering. Without a word, Aaron opened the trunk of his old pickup and began unloading bags. Canned food, clean clothes, thick blankets. He knelt beside them, wrapped a small girl in a fleece blanket, and gently handed a thermos to the oldest boy. Hot cocoa made it extra sweet. Marissa's breath caught in her throat. Tears blurred her vision. This man, struggling to keep his garage afloat, raising a daughter on his own, was giving everything he had to strangers in the dead of night. She stayed hidden until he left, then returned to her car, shaken to her core. The next morning, Marissa arrived at Aaron's garage just as he unlocked the bay door. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Ms. Cole," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Everything all right with the car?" She stepped forward, voice soft but steady. "No, everything is not all right. Not for those kids in the courtyard, and not for you, carrying that weight alone." Aaron's shoulders tensed. I don't know what you're talking about." "You don't have to pretend. I saw you last night. And I want to help." Silence stretched between them, until Aaron finally looked her in the eyes. And in that gaze, Marissa saw exhaustion, humility, and a flicker of hope. "What I do, it's not charity. It's just what's right. Those kids lost their mom last winter. Their dad's in the hospital. Nobody checks on them. So I do." Marissa reached into her purse and pulled out a check. Not for thousands, but enough to cover rent for the family's apartment for 6 months. She said, "This is just the start. Let me help you do more." Aaron hesitated, then nodded. Within weeks, Marissa used her resources to transform Aaron's garage. A back room became a donation center. Local businesses partnered to supply food and winter coats. Volunteers showed up. Teachers, nurses, even former clients of Everline Capital. Aaron's quiet mission became a ripple of kindness that reached dozens of families. But the real miracle wasn't the donations, it was the shift in hearts. Marissa, once consumed by quarterly reports and shareholder expectations, now spent weekends packing care kits and reading bedtime stories to kids in shelters. And Aaron, who once believed he had nothing to give, discovered his greatest strength wasn't in fixing engines, but in healing souls. One evening, as they stood together outside the garage, now painted bright blue with a mural of hands holding hearts, Marissa turned to Aaron. "You changed my life," she said. He smiled. "No, we reminded each other what matters." In a world obsessed with success measured in dollars and likes, Aaron and Marissa proved that true greatness is measured in compassion, courage, and the willingness to show up even at 2 a.m. for someone who has no one else. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to ACA Story Tales. Every click helps us bring more real-life tales of kindness, second chances, and quiet heroes who change the world one act of love at a time. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't told on billboards. They're lived in alleyways, garages, and 2 a.m. courtyards by ordinary people with extraordinary hearts. Thanks for watching.